Logical conversation that said, these are the challenges we face and this is what we need to do. That conversation by August of 2017 was complete, and then I said, I'm going to be here a short amount of time. Well, if I could do one thing for national security policy to change the course of the United States going forward, to preserve our republic, it would be to secure the internet. And so I started working on talking to engineers about what is 5G, what's the state of play today, because we'd said in the national security strategy that data is a strategic resource, like oil in the 20th century, data in the 21st century, which will drive artificial intelligence and everything that all the algorithms that essentially guide our lives to better places. If we didn't secure that strategic resource, then we were at risk as a democracy. And so how do we take that new essentially beamforming antennas with software-defined radios and networks, which something that we had used in the military for a long time, and apply and give it to the people, but then do it in a way that actually provides security for their data, which is in essence what I'd come to the conclusion the only way that you democratize in a digital sense is by protecting, is by giving control at the citizen level of their data.
Of their data.
Of their data.
Okay.
It is, and the analogy I make when I talk to people is, if you go back to Alexander Hamilton and the framing of the Constitution, essentially what he was shooting for after having surveyed, done an extensive survey of all the governments that existed prior, was how do we create a government where no one person, party, or group can attain ultimate power? Because ultimate power is ultimately corrupting. And so that's the Constitution, but then what if it fails? What if, we don't actually provide for the people and somebody can gain power? Then we give the American people the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, so that they can fight an oppressive government if that dream ever fails. And of course, in the digital world, what you had begun to see, is a world where you may not know you're being oppressed, or you may not know your oppressor. And in that world,
you may not know you're the oppressor.
You may not know you're being oppressed.
Or the second one
or
was?
that who your oppressor is.
Who your oppressor is.
Right, because we'd seen for instance, after the election, using big data analysis, AI bots, and social media networks, the Russians had created protests, right? It was ostensibly on behalf of Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about the one in New York City a few days after the election, but it was really the Russians. And so what you're seeing is, in going back to data as a strategic resource, in the digitized world, the ability to aggregate data is equivalent to aggregating power. And if you can aggregate power, then you have to wonder about who has the ability to aggregate data in that world. And today, the two entities that can really aggregate data are large tech companies and totalitarian regimes. Democracies have a hard time aggregating data. The United States cannot aggregate data because the law prevents it from doing so. So we started this unit within the State Department called the Global Engagement Center. The Global Engagement Center was supposed to fight radicalization, for instance, by ISIS, and prevent influence of our population. But they can't do their job because they can't aggregate data. Not even public-facing Twitter data, right? Because there's concern that we use the resources of the government to spy on our own population. But one of the ways that foreign states go after us is actually to take our own social media data and use it in ways that influence us. And so in order to discover that, you actually have to be in the data. And so the only ones that can be in the data today are the large tech companies. And so you're essentially offloading to the large tech companies one of the primary purposes of forming the Constitution, which is in the preamble, provide for the common defense. And so if you think about national security, and it gets really the heart of things, right? If you think about national security, we have an Air Force, we have an Army, we have a Navy, we have a Marine Corps, right? I don't think you're worried about Marines jumping into your building here or getting bombed, right? You're not concerned about that, but I guarantee you the Chinese are in your networks, and the Russians, and the North Koreans, and everybody else.
You guarantee?
I guarantee it. They're in your networks. They're in everybody's networks. This is what they do. And so if they're in your networks,
That's strong statements. You're saying you're guaranteeing
guarantee
China and Russia's in our network.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it, particularly because you put out that that video on China. I guarantee they've come at this place. But so who's responsible for protecting you from that?
Government? I
No,
would assume. Then
no.
Who is it?
Not at all. The government protects their own networks. They don't protect your networks.
Got it.
So
you're saying responsibility on the entrepreneur
you're
to do
responsible
that.
to protect your own network. And then, of course, if do you have a Twitter account? Do you have?
I do.
Okay. Twitter's responsible for protecting that.
Twitter is responsible for protecting my account on Twitter.
Right.
And I'm responsible for protecting my network.
Your data.
My data,
right,
what I have
right.
here, which we have, we've
Right.
invested
It's
into
not the
that.
U.S. government.
Sure, but now let me ask you this. So I had a former undercover FBI agent right here. He sat in that chair 3 weeks ago. So I asked him, I said, so what is the real line you don't cross between the government protecting me, right? Because the government getting too involved and, hey, the whole Apple going to DMV getting IDs, not Apple, the government going to the DMV and saying we want to get the licenses, and then government getting to Apple and saying we want to be able to get access to the phone conversations in case a terrorist does this. Well, in China, because some people will say, well, China is set up in a way where they feel like they're a company and they control what everybody does because they work for the company.